I'm Danny Brown, and you're listening to Artifacts, a storytelling podcast about technology, internet culture, media, and the feelings we still attach to them. Because sometimes the objects fade, but the feeling doesn't. There was a time when one of the most important things you could write online wasn't a post, or a tweet, or a status update. It was an away message. A tiny box of text attached to your screen name. That's it. No algorithm, no engagement metrics, no followers, no likes, just a few lines of text. But somehow these few lines felt important. People spent an absurd amount of time crafting them. Song lyrics, cryptic messages, inside jokes, passive-aggressive relationship updates. Sometimes all at once. And looking back, it's kind of ridiculous, but it's also fascinating. Because people weren't really writing away messages to communicate information, they were using them to communicate identity. And I think that's why people still remember them. Not because they were useful, but because they captured a version of the internet that felt personal. It's hard to explain to somebody who grew up with smartphones that being online used to be an event. You didn't simply exist on the internet all day, you went online. And when you did, it felt intentional. You sat down at the family computer, maybe after school, maybe late at night, maybe while hoping nobody picked up the phone. And then there was the ritual, the sounds, the login, the buddy list appearing, the names lighting up one by one, and your friends becoming available in real time. That moment carried a strange kind of excitement, because unlike today, communication wasn't constant. People disappeared, signed off, were unavailable. And that scarcity made connection feel more valuable. You noticed when somebody logged on. You noticed when they disappeared. And you definitely noticed their away message. Because the away message wasn't just telling you somebody wasn't there. It was telling you who they were, or at least who they wanted to be. Long before social media profiles became carefully managed personal brands, people were experimenting with identity in much smaller ways. And away messages became one of those spaces. You could tell a surprising amount about somebody from what they wrote. Maybe it was a lyric from a band you'd never heard of. Maybe it was a quote from a movie. Maybe it was something intentionally mysterious. And because of that, the internet was filled with people trying to say, "This is who I am," without directly saying it. And away messages were perfect for that, because they sat in this little space between communication and performance. You weren't broadcasting to the world, you were broadcasting to your people, your friends, your classmates, your tiny corner of the internet. And because the audience was smaller, the communication felt different, less optimized, less strategic, and more human. Looking back now, some of them were incredibly dramatic, especially if you were a teenager. Okay, let's be honest, most of them were incredibly dramatic. Song lyrics about heartbreak, messages clearly aimed at one specific person, vague statements designed to spark curiosity. They were the digital equivalent of staring out a rainy window while listening to sad music. And yet, people remember them fondly, because they weren't polished, they were genuine, or at least genuinely trying to be. I think one reason people miss away messages is because they belong to an internet before personal branding became normal. Today, almost every online platform encourages us to present ourselves publicly, to build an audience, to gain followers, to optimize visibility. But away messages weren't designed for strangers. They were designed for people who already knew you. And that changes everything. Because when communication isn't being measured, it becomes more honest, or at least less calculated. Nobody was checking analytics, nobody was studying engagement rates, and nobody was testing different versions of their away message to maximize reach. People were simply expressing themselves, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes dramatically, sometimes badly, but always authentically. And maybe that's the thing people miss the most. Not the software or the buddy lists or the notifications, but the feeling that the internet was still small enough to feel personal. Because while modern platforms connect us to millions of people, these older spaces connected us to a few. And that made for very different experiences. Away messages were never important technology. They weren't revolutionary. They didn't change the world. They were just little pieces of text attached to usernames. But sometimes the smallest artifacts reveal the most about who we were, what we cared about, how we wanted to be seen, and what being online felt like before the internet became something we carried everywhere. I'm Danny Brown, and this is Artifacts. Thanks for spending some time with Artifacts. If this episode reminded you of a memory, a feeling, or a piece of the internet you thought had disappeared, you can find more episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to help preserve the archive, visit the website for ways to support the show. Until next time, take care of the things that matter to you, even the small ones.